This is a test of frequency instruments, bass, drums, distortion.
That as cruel for people living in rural areas, but the First Minister Mark Drakeford has rejected that claim, saying the rule is not absolute.
If you had to travel a longer distance than 5 miles now to get food or medicines, you would be allowed to do that under the stay-at-home regulations, and you are allowed to do so under the stay local regulations as well.
Elsewhere, Mr Drakeford has told retailers across Wales to use the next 3 weeks to start to prepare to reopen. Any decision allowing that to happen is expected during the next review in 3 weeks' time. The changes announced today will come in effect on Monday, but people have been reminded to stick to the rules as the virus has not gone away yet. Daniel Bevan, LBC in Cardiff.
With glorious weather forecast all weekend in Scotland, crowds are expected to flock to the beaches, including this one in Irvine in Ayrshire. Now, usually families here would be fighting for space in the ice cream parlours, cafes and pubs dotted along the harbour side, but instead they're fighting for socially distanced space on the sand. The advice in Scotland is to only travel locally, although there isn't a legal limit on how far you can go, and it looks like some people are breaking that rule, with cars backed up on any available verge or pavement near the front. Garden centres open this weekend as well, but only if they can implement social distancing safely. Drive-throughs and takeaways are being encouraged to start operating as well to feed the crowds at the beaches. We've already heard that McDonald's will start operating nearly 1,000 drive-throughs across the UK from Monday. That's when teachers will start the work needed to get children back in the classrooms here this August too, though there could be an even earlier return for some toddlers. Childminders and outdoor nurseries will be allowed to open next week, with the good weather set to continue for the next 7 days at least. Becky Clark, LBC, Irvine.
Stormont's two First Ministers have announced a further easing of lockdown measures from June the 8th if the R value in Northern Ireland remains below 1. At a press conference in Belfast, DUP leader Arlene Foster and Sinn Féin Deputy Leader Michelle O'Neill said new measures could take effect on June the 8th following a meeting of the Stormont Executive on June 4th. They would include outdoor weddings for up to 10 people, dog grooming and horse training, outdoor sports courts, car showrooms reopening, phone and electrical shops reopening, and hotels have been given the green light to take advance bookings, though no date has yet been given for when hotels can reopen. Meanwhile, care home deaths accounted for more than half of COVID-19 deaths in Northern Ireland, according to new figures. The Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency said by last Friday, 380 or 53.1% of the total 716 deaths had occurred amongst care home residents. I'm Amanda Ferguson, reporting for LBC.
I'm going to be asking you, with the lockdown easing, do you think many people are going to be encouraged to break the rules, or do you think people are going to stick to the rules? But equally, we're going to get an update from our Washington correspondent, Simon Mark, shortly on Donald Trump's press conference. I think it was an unusual press conference, even by Donald Trump standards, in which I don't think he took any questions. So much for a press conference. But first, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Lee Rowley, who is the Conservative MP for North East Derbyshire. Mr. Rowley, are we now looking at... are we beginning to win the battle with the easing of the lockdown in the four corners of the United Kingdom?
Well, hi, Andrew, and thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.
I hope we are starting to turn the corner. You know, it's been an incredibly difficult few months, and it's positive if we can take these steps in a safe and secure way that makes sure the reinfection rate, the R rate, doesn't go up, and we can get back to some greater semblance of normality. It's what lots of people want, but they also want to do it carefully, just like the government does. So hopefully we are turning the corner slowly.
Are you reassured or anxious that the four parts of the UK are doing things differently? So Scotland, it's 8 people you can see, and they've started it today. 6 in England on Monday. It's different in Wales. Or is that just one of the joys of devolution, that they're going to do things differently?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, this. I completely get your point. I mean, as you say, there's a devolution settlement in place, and Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland have the right to do things at a different speed if they wish. That probably reflects also the different characteristics of each of the four nations. But we are trying to move as closely as possible as we can in rough tandem, and we're not that far off in terms of what we have to do and the order we're doing it. Some areas doing it a little bit earlier than others, but roughly we're all heading in the same direction, which is positive.
What's your advice to people listening to this who've seen great swathe of people clearly ignoring this. I'll give you an example. It's really near where I live in North London, Hampstead Heath. I went for a walk there the other day with a friend. There was probably about 40 young men and women, probably in their early 20s, all sat together. There's no way they all live in the same house unless they live in a mansion. And they all, and when I chatted to them, being a pompous, old, boring, public-spirited citizen, saying, "Oh, what about social distancing?" They say, "Well, it doesn't affect us. If we get it, we won't get ill. We won't feel the symptoms. It only affects old people." To which I then said, "Well, will you not be meeting any older people? Will you not potentially be putting people at risk?" And they just said, "Have a drink, mate."
Yeah, there is obviously a challenge. What I found as a MP in Derbyshire and from my colleagues across the country is that the vast majority of people are doing the right thing the vast majority of the time, and I think that's to be applauded, and we're very grateful for that. We know there are some people who aren't able to do that all the time because of personal circumstances, and we've just had a week-long discussion about various examples around that. And we also know there are a few people who are not doing it at all, and that's regretful, and I hope they will change it and think, about implications for themselves and others. But I just go back to the fact that the vast majority of people do seem to be doing it and still seem to be doing it, and that's positive. I hope that continues, because the more people do it, the quicker we will get through this.
And I'm going to ask you a little question about it, and we have moved on now, but were you one of those who was calling for Dominic Cummings to stand down or to apologise, or did you keep your head down and keep out of it?
I haven't called for him to resign. In fact, for the first few days, I didn't say anything because I wanted to understand more, and I think it was right that Cummings came out and made a clear set of statements and explanations about what he did, because people wanted that. People obviously have their own views about the detail on it. In the end, I thought, as Cummings said, that it was a set of balanced decisions, and some people would think what he did was reasonable, and some people would think that they wouldn't have done that. I came down on the side that I thought it was a stressful time. I can see what he did. I spent the last couple of months helping residents in my patch get through similar decisions when personal circumstances don't fit easily into the very, very strict rules and very, very strict guidance. So I wasn't going to throw stones at him like I didn't throw stones at my local residents, because I do think the vast majority of people did the right thing at the right time. But it's not been a great week. I completely accept that.
All right, that's Lou Rowley. He's the Conservative MP for North East Derbyshire. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about the health aspect of it now with Oksana Pizik, I hope I pronounced that right, who's Global Citizenship Programme Lead on outbreaks of infectious diseases at UCL. Oksana, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, do you have reservations about the fact that in all four corners of the UK now we are relaxing the lockdown? Some suggestion that the infection rate is it low enough now for you for the lockdown to be relaxed? Are you reassured?
My main concern about the easing of lockdown measures, and these are actually being staggered, so it's not all being lifted at once, as the Prime Minister has gone through. But the main concern is actually around the contact tracing program and its operationality at this point. That is the key to quickly acting and being able to suppress areas where we might see a spike in cases. And that's really important because it means that we can have a more flexible approach. So when outbreaks do occur, it's very common for testing of the ground to see if it's going to be safe. Right now, we've managed to artificially suppress the reproduction number.